So that's where we are, Brian. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Yes.
We are now in day 3 of the Democrat-led government shutdown. The Democrats continue to recklessly hold the American people hostage over their demands to give illegal aliens free health care. Republicans are fully unified behind passing a nonpartisan, clean funding bill. The exact same bill that Democrats approved back in March to reopen the federal government. But those same Senate Democrats are now voting against this clean funding bill and keeping the people's government closed. I understand Democrats will have an opportunity very shortly here to change course, and we hope that they will. There are significant personal impacts on millions of Americans as a result of this current government shutdown. The 1.3 million men and women of America's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Space Force who serve honorably and put their lives on the line to defend us all are not being paid. Military families are already seeking out food assistance because of financial anxiety caused by this Democrat shutdown. According to new reporting from the Military Times, staff members at the Armed Services YMCA food pantry distribution location near Fort Hood in Texas found a line of military families stretched around the side of the building yesterday at 5 in the morning.
And they don't want to take it.
According to the staff who work there, that is, quote, not happened ever. They've already had a 34% increase this week over past weeks. President Trump and Republicans fundamentally believe we have a sacred responsibility to protect and provide for our military families with the resources they need to thrive. If Democrats believe in this very simple premise too, they should end this shutdown immediately. Unfortunately, the severe impacts of the Democrat shutdown extend beyond our troops. Nearly 7 million mothers, infants, and low-income families who rely on government-funded food assistance will be in jeopardy if the WIC program runs out of money in the weeks ahead. The more than 13,000 air traffic controllers who ensure that Americans fly safely in airports across the country are currently working without pay. The National Flood Insurance Program is in danger of lapsing, which could leave families without necessary help if a disaster strikes and we are in the middle of hurricane season. Critical services offered at Social Security field offices are reduced for senior citizens and disabled Americans. Helpful transition assistance programs are not being provided for veterans who fought to defend our country and are now trying to re-enter civilian life. The economic consequences of this shutdown are piling up every day. Policymakers, markets, and even the Federal Reserve are flying blind at a key juncture because BLS and EPA data are on hold until the government reopens. Democrats shutting down the federal government to give health care to illegal aliens could lead to lower growth and higher unemployment rates for Americans. According to a new memo from the Council of Economic Advisors, the U.S. economy could lose $15 billion of gross domestic product each week. Every single week, the Democrat shutdown extends. The month-long shutdown leading to an additional 43,000 unemployed people. Small businesses are likely to encounter delays in receiving federal loans. Mortgage applications will likely shrink. And just this morning, Business Roundtable, an association of more than 200 CEOs of America's leading companies representing every sector of the U.S. economy, put out a statement urging Congress to pass the clean CR that will once again come before them in the Senate floor in just a few moments. Quote, a fully functioning government is essential for American businesses, workers, and consumers, while policymakers continue working on a full-year funding package and other pressing issues. Again, that is a quote from the Business Roundtable. What's clear is that the Democrats' actions account to an intentional sabotage of our country and our people by shutting down our government. This madness must end. President Trump and Republicans are calling on Democrats to reopen the government immediately on behalf of the American public. All we need are 5 Democrat senators to do the right thing and to stop this shutdown. Call your Democrat senator and tell them to vote yes to reopen the government. On another matter, despite the Democrat shutdown, President Trump's efforts to make America safe again continue. President Trump believes that American cities should be the safest places on earth, and he is committed to making this a reality. We've already seen that President Trump successfully made D.C. safe again in only a few weeks. That same crime crackdown will continue to happen in cities across the country and is happening in Portland, Oregon. President Trump will end The radical left's reign of terror
and then
in Portland
something
once and
happened
for
to
all.
him over a
The
fairly short
president has
period of time.
directed
Looks like he
Secretary
was
Hegseth
radicalized
to provide
over the
all
internet,
necessary
and it's
troops to
radicalized
protect
on the left.
war-ravaged
He's a
Portland
left.
and any ICE facilities
A lot
under
of problems
siege from
with the
attack
left,
by
and they get
Antifa
protected,
and other left-wing
and they
domestic
shouldn't be
terrorists.
protected. But
What's
as
been
you
allowed to
understand, I
happen
think
in
very well
Portland,
from
and we saw
the tone of your
disturbing
question. Thank you
video
very
footage
much.
of this last night. This is not peaceful protesting. This is left-wing anarchy that has been destroying this great American city for years, leaving police officers battered, citizens terrorized, and business properties damaged. Since early June alone, Antifa terrorists have laid siege to the ICE field office in South Portland. These radical left-wing lunatics have violently breached the ICE facility by using a stop sign as a battering ram, hurled explosives and other projectiles at law enforcement, repeatedly assault and dox officers, berate their law-abiding neighbors, and have even rolled out a guillotine in front of the ICE facility.
Showed me a little while ago the clip.
And more people should be reporting on that.
You can actually see it.
President Trump has sent federal law enforcement to protect federal assets and arrest those fueling this violence.
We know
just
what
last
time
night,
they were
we saw an
leaving, when they were leaving, what
extremely
they had,
troubling
and all of the other
incident where
things
conservative
that you'd like
journalist
to
Nick
have.
Sorter was captured
But
on
we have
video,
noticed that
being taken
there are
into
no ships in the ocean
custody
anymore.
by the
We're seeing
Portland
that
police
there's like
after
no
he
ships, no.
was ambushed by
The
Antifa
first one
and was
we went,
defending
there were
himself from these assaults.
hundreds of
But
boats.
instead of arresting these
Now there are
violent
no
mob
boats.
members,
I
night
wonder
after
why.
night after night,
Meaning no
who are
drugs are
ravaging
coming
this
across.
community.
Probably stopping
The
some
police
fishermen
arrested a
too.
journalist
I mean, to
who
be
was
honest,
there
if
trying
I
to
were a fisherman,
document
I
the
wouldn't want to
chaos,
go
and
fishing.
everyone in this
Just a
room is
nice,
extremely concerned
let's
about
take
that.
a little trip.
The Department of
because
Justice
I'd say,
spoke with that
man,
journalist
if
this morning, and they will be lodging
maybe they
a
think I
full
have drugs
investigation
downstairs. I don't
into
want
his
that.
arrest.
I think the
This
fishing
incident
business
is part
probably
of a
been hurt,
troubling
but
trend in
no,
Portland
there
where
are
left-wing
literally
mobs believe they get to
no
decide
boats.
who
This was
can
a
visit
boat,
and
and we
live
were surprised
in
to
their
see
city.
it. Now,
It is not their
what
city.
does that
It is
mean?
the
That means
American
there's no
people's
drugs
city, and
coming
President Trump is
by
going to
sea,
restore
but they
that.
do come by
I just
land.
spoke with the president about
And
this.
you know what?
He has
We're
directed
telling
his team
the
here at the White
cartels
House
right now, we're
to
going to be
begin
stopping them
reviewing
too.
aid that can
When
potentially
they come
be
by
cut
land, we're going to be
in
stopping
Portland.
them the same
We
way
will
we
not
stop
fund
the boats.
states that allow anarchy.
And you'll see that.
There will also be an
but
additional
maybe
surge
by
of federal
talking about it a
resources
little
to
bit, it
Portland
won't happen. If it
immediately,
doesn't happen, that's
including
good.
enhanced
But
CBP and
they killed
ICE
300,000
resources.
people
Law
in our
and
country
order will
last year.
prevail, and President Trump
we're not
will
letting
make
it
sure of
happen anymore.
With that, I'll take your questions, and we will begin today's briefing with our new media seat, Amanda Head from Just the News. Amanda, thank you for being here.
On that most recent topic that you mentioned, reportedly Portland police have not been able to engage protesters to the degree that they normally would. Does the president plan on handling this from that angle as well?
Yes.
When I
From
say
our
that,
understanding,
that's my
law
opinion.
enforcement that we have here
I
at
think he
Homeland
was
Security Task
radicalized
Force, I
online
spoke
based
with
on
them
what
this
they're saying.
morning, and what they're seeing is that unfortunately, local police has been
I'm going to
restricted
have to
from
ask, I don't know, I'd
responding or
ask Pam that
cooperating at
question. I
all
don't know if you
with
or
federal
Todd
authorities,
can
which is
answer that.
completely
Somebody has to
absurd.
bear
We have
some
surged federal law
responsibility.
enforcement
And President
personnel
Trump, I've
to
always
this
told
city
parents, you got to watch what
restore
your
law
kids
and
are
order
doing
and
on
to
the
work
internet, what they're
alongside
doing
local
online,
law enforcement.
what they're
And we've
listening to,
seen
what they're
the
reading. They're
benefits-
all
the
online, they're all on their
benefits of this
phones
in
all
Washington,
the time.
D.C. And
Parents
all
have
of
got
you
to
live here, so
monitor
you can
that,
agree
because it starts when
Washington,
you're young.
D.C.
It
is
starts
and
when you're
feels
young,
much
when you
safer
listen to these
because
groups,
of the
when you watch
cooperation
these
between
shows,
federal and local
parents
law
have got to just
enforcement.
be vigilant.
They can
So
and
sure,
must
that's
be
part
working
of it. And
together.
they're meeting kids
And we
online
think it's
who they think
despicable
are kids,
that
and they
these
can be
local
anywhere in
elected
the world
officials
and
who
talking to
swear
them.
an oath to
And yeah,
protect
they're all
their
being
people
radicalized.
are preventing them
He
from
went
doing
bad,
their jobs on
and
the
he
ground.
just went
So that's
bad
why the president has
very
directed
quickly,
his
in a
team here
sense,
at the
because
White
he
House,
sort
and they
of
are
led
already
a
on it to look
very
at how
normal
we can
life,
cut funds.
a
And
life
the
of,
president
you
wants
know,
to work with
great
anyone. If the mayor
education,
of
schools,
Portland were to
everything
call
else,
him
but
right now and say,
somewhere
Mr.
along
President,
the line
please help
something
us, I
happened.
am
Yeah,
sure
please.
the president would be willing to do that. He is genuinely serious about wanting to restore order in American cities. But it's become apparent that the local and elected officials in Oregon do not feel the same. That's very unfortunate for the people who live there.
They have no respect for the
Question
government.
on the government shutdown.
They have
Should there
no
be
respect
some
for the
type
mayor.
of
They
scheduled
respect us.
layoffs to maybe
And we
entice
found that in
Democrats
Washington.
to come to the
We
table,
haven't had
like
total
every
support
hour
in
another
Washington
agency,
from
another 100 pink
government,
slips.
as
I'm
you
sure
know,
Russ
from
Vogt has a list of
everybody. I
folks
don't want
ready
to say
go.
the mayor because she
Well,
was better
look,
than
the
most,
Office
but
of Management
we haven't
budget,
had
as we've said repeatedly,
great,
is
but we have
working
had
with
great support
the
from
agencies
the
and our cabinet
Metropolitan
secretaries to
Police.
identify where cuts
They're like
unfortunately
brothers
can
of
and have
these
to be
people.
made. And
They're really
again,
like
we
brothers. You
understand
see
there's
that.
another
They
vote
work
happening
together.
on the Senate floor in an hour.
And so
Maybe if Democrats do the right thing, this government shutdown can be over. Our troops can get paid again. We can go back to doing the business
he's going to
of
do,
the
the governor
American
of
people.
Tennessee,
But if this
what's going to
shutdown
happen with
continues,
Memphis.
as we've said,
3-4 weeks we'll
layoffs
stand
are
together
an
and we'll say, look at
unfortunate
this, the
consequence
crime
of
has
that.
almost disappeared,
And
maybe
Russ Vought has
completely
been in
disappeared.
contact with our
In
cabinet
Washington,
secretaries at their respective
they
agencies
don't even know how to
discuss
report
that.
it because it's
Thank you.
down so much. You know,
Kelly.
they've never heard.
How would
I heard
this administration
87%
define what
is
makes
down.
a
I said,
Democrat
really? Who are the
agency,
13%?
which agencies, and
'Cause it's more
what
than that.
constitutes being
It's
a
actually more
Democrat
hard to
agency?
believe, right?
I think
You
this
can have the
administration
same
has been
results
very
in
clear,
Chicago.
Kelly, that we're not going to tolerate
And,
waste,
we hope
fraud,
we
and
have the
abuse in our
governor's help, but
government.
if we don't, we're doing
and
it
we've
without
also
it.
been very clear to point out when agencies or when programs do not align with this administration's values of putting our country first. You've seen that with USAID and in
Well, we
various other
haven't decided that,
cases
but
where
it looks to me, and I'm
there's
speaking to
been cuts made
President
or funding
Xi
has been
on
slashed.
Friday
And so,
for
again,
confirmation of
unfortunately,
that.
we're having to do a
you know,
massive
frankly,
review
more
of the
importantly, a
bureaucracy
big
to be
deal.
good stewards of the American
And,
taxpayer dollar.
we've had very
and it's
good
the
meetings.
Democrats who
As
have
you know, we
forced
were in Europe.
the White
Our
House
people,
and the president
Scott
into this
Bessent and
position by
Jameson,
voting to shut the
or
government down.
Jameson Greer.
You talked about
and others.
thousands
And
likely
it was a very big
layoffs
meeting
coming. Do you have an
with,
update on the
China.
timeline for that? How quickly?
You know,
And
they're treating us
if
with
the
respect,
government
we treat
is
them with
restored
respect, too.
funding and back in
But it
operation,
was
will
very
that list of
successful.
potential
And on top of
layoffs
it,
still be on the table?
we have,
Look, as I just stated, the
what
Office
could
of
be a very
Management
good
and
deal. Don't
Budget is
forget,
in
I've
constant
had more
communication and
people say,
contact
could
right
you
now
try and keep
with
TikTok
our cabinet
alive? I use
secretaries and
TikTok. I mean, I have
agencies
to
across
admit
the
it.
board to
In the
identify,
election, and look how I
unfortunately,
did
where
with you.
layoffs
No
have to be
Republicans
made,
come close.
and where cuts
Blew
have to
everyone
happen.
away. You know,
But again, the
if you look
Democrats have an
back,
opportunity to
not
prevent
so long
this
ago,
if
Romney,
they
he
vote
got
to
like
reopen the
7%
government.
of
That
the
is all
youth.
this administration
I
and the
got
president is asking for.
like
Vote for a clean
8
continuing
times that
resolution to
amount.
keep the government open.
I got
Period.
tremendous numbers.
Thanks,
of people. By the
Karoline.
way,
During the
I want to
campaign,
say,
Peter?
Charlie helped me. And Charlie was
I
the
was
one,
raised to
get
say
on
thank you
TikTok.
in
He
the
used to
White
say
House
to me,
briefing
get
room.
on TikTok.
During the
Charlie was
campaign,
unbelievable.
President Trump
So,
said that he
Probably,
did not know anything about Project
and I did. I
2025.
had somebody named TikTok
Now he
Jack.
knows about it. Is
And he
that
put
the
that camera, he
blueprint
said,
for
just a
shrinking the
real
government?
quick statement,
Look, the
so like
blueprint is
10
what the
seconds or
president and
less.
his team and his
They
cabinet
didn't like anything
secretaries
over
ultimately
10
decide.
seconds, but
and the president
it worked. But
trusts
Charlie
his
is the
cabinet
one that
secretaries
really,
to identify where
and my
there's
son
waste,
Barron also.
fraud, and abuse.
And I have to say,
we pointed
and
out this
Don,
morning,
Eric,
or
the
Russ
whole
Vought
group,
tweeted
it's-
about this morning, a
it's
Chicago Rail
important.
project
And
that was canceled. We
it
paused
can maybe even bring us
$2.1
closer
billion
to China.
in
We had a
Chicago
very good meeting
infrastructure
with China. I was
projects,
surprised. I didn't expect
the
it
Red Line extension
to
and the
that
red and
extent.
purple
And I'm going to speak
modernization
again with
project.
President Xi on
And it's because
Friday.
the administration is
You know, I
concerned
think
that the Biden
that'll confirm
administration was
things up.
handing out taxpayer dollars to pay for this construction based on DEI. DOT is reviewing the race-based contracting on unconstitutional
Well, I'm going on
grounds.
Sunday.
And in
We're
the
taking a
meantime, the
whole
Department of
plane load,
Transportation funds for these
and
projects are on hold. So I guess
was
this
invited
answers
on
both of your
Saturday,
questions.
but I
This
said
would be an
I'd
example
rather
of
save
that.
it for Sunday. You don't
Just
have
because
a-
there's so much
a
shutdown
stadium.
talk, something
And I'll
different.
bet that stadium is going to be
What do you guys
pretty
think about
packed.
the NFL's decision
Maybe
to
completely
name Bad
packed.
Bunny as
It's
the
going to be
Super
big,
Bowl
but I'm going to be
halftime
at the
performer,
stadium, and I guess
somebody
I'll
who
say a few
has
words.
not
I
scheduled
don't
shows
know,
in
but
the
I
West
guess I will.
because he says
But I know
that
him
he's
very
worried
well.
that ICE is going to
He was an
come
amazing
and
guy.
arrest his
He
fans.
was an amazing
Well,
guy.
I know there are
he
many in this
was
room who are very
all about
anxious to
young
hear
people
the
getting them
president's
started
response
right.
to Bad Bunny being
And
the
he
halftime
was,
show. So I won't get ahead of
was like a
him.
magnet
I won't reveal
for
what he
young
feels
people.
about this.
They
Next
just
time you all ask me a
attracted
question,
to him.
you're
He
welcome
loved
to
him,
do
and
that.
they
I have
attracted
my
to
own
him.
feelings on that,
His
but
wife
that's not
is
what
a
I'm up here to
tremendous
talk
person,
about.
by the way.
As
He always
far
had
as
great
ICE
respect
being at
for
the
his
Super
wife.
Bowl,
He got
as
married.
far
I
as
was-
I'm aware,
I
there's
didn't know
no
he was
tangible
getting
plan for
married.
that
I heard he
in
got
store
married.
right now.
And that's,
However,
he
of
loved
course,
her.
this
He
administration
really
is
loved
always
her.
going
She
to
loved
arrest
him.
and deport
And I
illegal
think she'll have
immigrants.
something
When
to
we
do
find
with
them, if
keeping
they are criminals, we're going to do the
that
right
whole
thing
thing
by our
going.
country.
You know, turning
Kate.
point is
Did the president
it
and Russ
became a
Vought
very
decide
big deal.
yesterday
And
in
I
their
heard they had
meeting
like
which cuts they wanted to
38,000.
make to agencies and
So
which
he
ones
wanted
would
to
be
get it up
permanent?
to 20,000
Again,
chapters.
I've
That's a
kind of answered
lot.
this
That would have
question
been a
a few different
lifetime's
times
work.
now. It's been
I
asked in a
heard
few different
that
ways.
over the last
Their
4
discussions
days,
continue between the
you have
Office of Management and Budget
38,000
and cabinet
people
agencies
want
across the board,
38,000
and they are
chapters at
actively
colleges,
identifying where these
schools,
cuts and these
other
layoffs have to
places.
be made as this
Numbers
government
that
shutdown
you know nobody's ever
hopefully
heard of
does
numbers
not
like that. So
continue.
I think turning point
Hamas,
could
the
be,
president said that
you know,
if
through
Hamas
what happened,
rejects
this
the
horrible
proposal
act,
that
it could
Netanyahu
be
would have his
maybe
full
bigger
backing
than it
to
could have
finish
ever
the
been
job. A UN
had he
report
been
found
there.
that
And I
Israel
will
is
say
committing
this, you'd
genocide
be
in
very
Gaza.
happy.
Does the president have
If he saw
concerns
what
about
was
the
going on.
civilians
And
being killed,
there's some
the
very good
worsening
people because they speak
humanitarian
at Turning
crisis?
Point
And are there limits
quite a
to
bit.
what the
And
White House would
Charlie
support
would
when it
call
comes
me
to
up.
Israel's actions in
So
Gaza?
the last time I
Look,
spoke to
the
him, he said,
president
sir, I think it
has
was
deep
Phoenix.
concerns about
Sir,
all of
could
the
you,
atrocities that have
get
taken
to
place in
Phoenix?
the Middle East over the
This
past
was like
few
in a
years.
day. I said,
It's
Charlie,
deeply unfortunate that
I'm
he
the
inherited
president
this
of the
mess
United
from
States.
the
You called me
Biden
asking me if I
administration.
could
You
speak
all
tomorrow
recall,
in Phoenix.
under President
You
Trump's
can't
first term,
do
the
that
Middle
to
East
me,
was
Charlie.
on a pathway for peace and
usually I ended
prosperity.
up
There was the
going.
historic signing of the Abraham
was great.
Accords.
He was a great
Israel
guy,
was on a
and he
path
didn't
to
deserve this.
normalization
He didn't deserve
between
this,
Arab and
believe
Gulf
me.
nations. And But right now, the president has made it very clear to Hamas that this is an acceptable and detailed proposal that they must accept or the consequences are going to be very grave for them. And he has given them a deadline of Sunday evening at 6 p.m. When I was out here on Wednesday, I told all of you, I'll leave it to the president to make that red line, and he now has. I think the entire world should hear the president of the United States loud and clear. And Hamas has an opportunity to accept this plan and to move forward in a peaceful and prosperous manner in the region. And if they don't, the consequences, unfortunately, are going to be very tragic.
This flag right here is up and down 14th Street. This is what would be the trans flag. A lot of people are very professional flag. It means
as the White House has said many times, the president has directed these actions, these strikes against Venezuelan drug cartels and these votes, consistent with his responsibility to protect the United States interests abroad and in furtherance of the U.S. national security and foreign policy interests. This is pursuant to his constitutional authority as commander-in-chief and the chief executive to conduct foreign relations. In each of these cases, Michael, the vessels have been assessed by the U.S. intelligence community to be affiliated with designated terrorist organizations engaged at the time in trafficking illicit drugs to our country. The president has been very clear, dating back to the campaign trail, that he is always going to do what's in the best interest of the American homeland. And he also promised the American people he was going to end the drug epidemic that has taken far too many American lives, and you're seeing those actions play out almost every single day.
But you know what? Has it been argued, and we're going to be arguing, I think, very soon, and that's the violence. They incite violence. So when I saw it just yesterday, they burned the American flag, and people that were there
That's just more ridiculous fodder.
And all of a sudden they're going crazy, and there's fist fights.
As you all know, because you're here every day, the president is literally working around the clock right now. I think he has a swearing-in ceremony, or he already did. He has several meetings on the books today. He literally works 24/7. Anyone who works in this place or covers this place, as you all do, knows that to be true. And Hakeem Jeffries and the Senate Democrats should get back to work in a few minutes and vote to reopen the government. And you could burn other things, and people just sit there, they fall asleep. You burn the American flag, and you're on both sides. But the level of violence I saw this flag burning cause was incredible. It was an incitement. So I hope you guys are going to be able to do that. I won't make any agreements here. Senate Republicans are talking with their colleagues on the Democrat side, but right now Russ Vought is doing what he's been tasked to do in the midst of this government shutdown, which is to look at funds that need to be temporarily halted or need to be canceled. And Chicago is just another example of that.
Netanyahu said that he doesn't rule out targeting Hamas anywhere they are. You said that you don't want to see Qatar hit again. Are there any guarantees
as I've said repeatedly,
well, he won't be hitting
right now we want the government to be open. Layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of a government shutdown, and it's something the administration is examining. If the government is reopened, we're going to get back to doing what we were doing last week and the week before, working on the issues that the American people
care about. And actually, they've been a very good ally. And a lot of people don't know that. But he won't be hitting Qatar, but he will be maybe going after that. There was an article that I read, a newspaper just
well, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy,
where
has
Hamas
put out
said they're
several
going to use
statements
the
on this.
20 hostages as human shields.
HHS's
They're gonna bring
decision,
them
it's not an
up
endorsement
from
of this drug by any
dark
means. They are
tunnels,
just simply following the
and
law.
they're gonna put them in
and
the
as
line
they
of
put out in
fire
their statement by
so
law,
that if Israel
that
goes
Secretary of
forward,
Health
they're
and
going
Human
to die.
Services must approve
And I
a
thought that
generic
was
drug
very terrible, and I
application
put out a
if the
statement that
application
you said that.
demonstrates the generic drug is the same as the brand name drug. Generic applicants are not required to submit independent evidence proving safety and effectiveness. As such, FDA's decision to approve a second generic version does not address the merits of the current safety program. HHS is reviewing adverse effects to ensure that FDA's required safety program for the drug is sufficient to protect women. This safety review equally applies to generic versions of this drug. So FDA and HHS are following the laws, again, not enforcement of the drug itself.
But the governor of Minnesota didn't
Thank you. Two questions on the shutdown. You've argued that these impending layoffs are necessary to keep essential services up and running, but that has never been the case in any previous shutdown. Even when the government was shut down for 35 days in Trump's first term, you've never had to lay off thousands of workers to keep essential services up and running. So why are layoffs now necessary in this shutdown?
Because we have an administration and we have a president who are wholeheartedly focused on restoring fiscal sanity to our government and doing the right thing by the American taxpayer. We are $37 trillion in debt.
I didn't say it's
Federal
on one
government
side,
is
but I
currently
say the
shut down.
radical
There is
left
no more
causes
money
tremendous
coming into the
violence, and
federal
they seem to
government's
do it in a
coffers.
bigger way.
And as you've also
But
seen
the
since the
radical left
beginning,
really
in
is
January, this administration
caused a lot of
is
problems
focusing
for
on
this
waste,
country.
fraud,
I
and
really
abuse.
think they hate
and
our
so
country.
Democrats
Okay,
have
yeah, please.
given this administration an unenviable choice
And we
to
are
have
really
to take a
looking
look
at that
at the balance sheet and identify where these cuts in lands can be made.
An unenviable choice and an unfortunate consequence. But the president has described this as an unprecedented opportunity to lay off additional workers. He posted a video likening
A number of them.
Grim
Steve,
Reaper.
please.
So which is this?
So who
Is
he's
this
referring
an
to is
opportunity to fire
there
more
are these
workers or an
nonprofit
unfortunate
entities
consequence?
that organize,
Look,
the president
likes to have a
mentioned,
little
attacks
fun
on
every
ICE
now and then, and I
officers,
think
attacks
both
on
things
Border
can be
Patrol
true at the
agents,
same time. The
organized
Democrats have
doxing
given the
campaigns,
administration this
which are a
opportunity. We
violation
don't
of
like
federal
laying
law.
people off. Nobody
They
takes
break
joy
off
in that around
cement,
here.
and they bring into riots. They have organized drop points for weapons, organized drop points for gas masks, organized drop points
Nobody
for all the
wants to
materials
do that, but
necessary to
sometimes
launch a
in
riot.
government
Of course, you
have
saw
to
that
make
during the
tough
Black Lives
decisions.
Matter riots
Gary.
as well too. So this whole network of organizations that people like the president's been making is somebody is paying for all of this. This is not happening for free. And so under the president's direction, the Attorney General is going to find out who is paying for it, and they will now be criminally liable for paying for
They are
it.
considering also
You know,
as far as Portland
a
City
new thing
Council
that
is concerned.
I've been seeing a lot of lately, but
members there
never saw
who are,
before, is they're walking in with bricks and rocks,
as far as,
everything. And the
suggesting
FBI
to
or
get burner
the
phones,
Border
et cetera,
Patrol
et cetera.
or
That's not
ICE,
something I've heard
or the
that's
police
under consideration
are grabbing them
discussion
and taking them
at
away.
this time.
That's great. And then they whip out, a hammer, and it's a beautiful hammer. Really,
Bianca Bronte
it's nice.
here, and I have a question.
This is not a hammer somebody
this week,
happens
the
to have. These are
Democrats have
serious
chosen
hammers,
illegal
beautiful, brand new
over
hammers.
hard-working
And they start breaking
Hispanic
up the concrete
Americans
sidewalks and the
during Hispanic
granite
Heritage
curbs
Month,
in many
causing
cases.
the White
Granite
House
is hard to cut,
cancel
you know, it's very
the
hard
celebration
stone.
with the
And they're
president.
banging
Is the
away and
president
handing out
open
pieces of
to
stone.
letting
So
the
instead of
Hispanics who
having it
overwhelmingly
in bags,
voted for
they're
it
banging the
have their
sidewalk,
own
knocking them. You have to see what some
in
of
the
these
White House
sidewalks
lawn
look like when they
opposed to the
finish,
fancy,
and especially the
you know, we
curbs,
don't
because the
need
granite
fancy,
curbs are
right?
very,
You
very
can give us the
expensive.
backyard and we'll
They're
fill it all
great,
in
and
and have it
very
our
hard.
own
They
fiesta.
are
Is the
almost
president open to
indestructible,
that?
but
I had
not
no
when it
idea
gets
you were gonna
pounded
ask
on
that
for
question.
20
I just
minutes
wanna
by some
preface that.
pretty strong guy.
I've never met
And
you.
they
I
hand
just
out
wanna
big
say that,
chunks
but
of
welcome to
stone
the briefing room.
so that people can
I
throw
love
them
your
at the police
energy.
and people can drop them
I
off bridges
can't
into car
personally
windows.
unilaterally promise the South
No,
Lawn
we have a long
grounds.
way
We
to
have
go,
some
and we're
construction
going
going
to
on
make it
out
all
there.
good. We're going to
But
make
I
it
do think,
really
I know
safe.
that
This
everyone
country's
here
going to
views
be
it as very
safe.
unfortunate. We have
We've got
had to cancel or
almost 3.5
hopefully just
years. Think of
reschedule
that,
the
3.5
Hispanic
years. It's a
American
long
Heritage
time.
Month event.
It
And
goes
it's because
quickly.
we are working
But
around the
at
clock
the end
during
of that
this government
time, I hope
shutdown.
one of the many
So
things
if
we
when
can
the
say is that we
Democrats
made
vote
our
to
cities
reopen the
safe
government,
again. Thank you
that
very
event
much,
will be
everybody.
back on the stage. Brian, go ahead.
I was with the Secretary of War and the Attorney General in Memphis just the other day as they were going to a command center. And I noticed a billboard along the highway that said, "Memphis welcomes the National Guard." Now, what is your message today to Democrat mayors watching us right now that suffer from TDS and they cannot get Trump out of the way to saving their city, Portland being one?
They should do the right thing by their citizens, Brian. They should call the president, they should call the White House and say, we want to work with you. And in Memphis, we are seeing some cooperation, as you saw from that billboard. The people of Memphis are loving this, and they are very grateful for the federal government's efforts. And federal law enforcement is there. We're working alongside local law enforcement. We'd like to see it ramped up a little bit because we want to make progress and we want to arrest as many bad criminals as we can. Since Monday, I do have some updated statistics from the Homeland Security Council this morning. Since Monday, 153 arrests have been made in Memphis, including 5 gang members, 48 illegal guns have been seized, and 5 missing children have already been recovered. Last night, 60 arrests were made and 21 illegal firearms were seized. Arrests from last night include a suspect wanted for rape of a child under 13, first-degree murder, breaking and entering, aggravated assault, illegal drug possession, and many more. So we continue to see good results coming in through Memphis, and the president is very excited about making Memphis safe again.
Thank you. At the top of the briefing, you made a statement about that the Democrats are interested in giving health care to illegal immigrants.
Yes, they are.
U.S. law already prohibits that. It's a 1996 law saying that they cannot give unauthorized immigrants any federally subsidized health care coverage through Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, or the Children's Health Insurance Program. There seems to be a disconnect in the message.
Are you denying that Medicaid money has never gone to illegal aliens in the United States of America?
I'm asking you if you can explain the disconnect in the message.
I most certainly can. The Democrats' proposal, their continuing resolution, let me just reiterate, the Republicans' continuing resolution was a clean continuing resolution. There was no partisan politics injected into it. There were no conservative wish lists injected to it. What the Republicans want and still want to this very second is a clean continuing resolution to fund the United States government. What did the Democrats want in their continuing resolution? They inserted a provision to undo a provision in the Working Families Tax Cut, the One Big Beautiful Bill, that ended taxpayer-funded health care illegal benefits for illegal aliens. Democrats' proposal would require Medicaid to pay more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than Medicaid does for American patients who are disabled, elderly, or children. And this bill would have also allowed California to continue a gimmick that funds its Medicaid for illegals program. Those are things that we ended, the Trump administration ended, with the passage and the signage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And it is an undisputed fact. A fact that under the Biden administration, illegal aliens were absolutely receiving taxpayer-funded health care benefits. In fact, in fiscal year 2024, Medicaid costs for emergency services for illegal immigrants skyrocketed by 142% from the previous year to $9.1 billion. That's $9.1 billion taxpayer dollars that were going to emergency services for illegals. Between President Trump's last full fiscal year under his first administration and Joe Biden's last full fiscal year, Medicaid spending on emergency services for illegal immigrants nearly tripled. There was an increase of 196% between 2020 and 2024. And I have a chart here for you, and I'm more than happy to email it to you. I'd also like to add, because some were asking dishonest questions yesterday about emergency rooms. In Southern California, according to healthcare professionals in 2023 under the Biden administration, Southern California's, quote, entire healthcare system was being bombarded with illegal immigrants and forcing American patients to endure longer wait times. In Denver, Colorado, the CEO of Denver Health stated that 8,000 illegal immigrants made 20,000 visits to the city's health system in 2023, leaving an uncompensated bill totaling over $10 million. So when an illegal alien goes to the emergency room, who's paying for it? The American taxpayer. The Maine Safety Net Hospital in Denver had to turn away patients due to the massive influx of illegal immigrants into the community. And UC Health Hospitals in 2024 reported their system was under stress from an increasing number of migrants. As a result, according to the head of emergency departments and urgent cares across the hospital system, quote, access is impeded for everyone. These are healthcare professionals who dealt with this directly, and there's a lot more where that came from. It is an undisputed fact that Democrats want to give taxpayer-funded healthcare benefits to illegal immigrants, period.
He begged his favorite nurse when she came to give us chemo.
Talking directly to Democratic
always worried about
try
his
and get their
dad
vote
because his
for
dad was Connor's best friend.
The Senate Republicans are speaking directly with moderate Democrats. I understand those conversations have become very serious, and we hope positive in the right direction so that Democrats will do the right thing.
We saw overnight a refinery in California went up in flames. Is the president going to help the governor should gas prices spike, or could he?
Look, I know the administration and the White House are aware of that situation that took place. I don't have any announcements for you on that.
Has the president seen the first draft of the commemorative coin that the Treasury is doing for the 250th anniversary? It has his face on it.
Oh, I'm not sure if he's seen it, but I'm sure he'll love it. Kara.
I kissed him goodbye.
It's now being reported that former President Biden's DHS and TSA placed peaceful January 6th protesters and even Americans who refused to wear masks during
Kids
COVID
shouldn't
onto
even
watch
know
lists
what
usually
cancer
reserved for
is,
terrorists.
let alone
Most
have
of these
to
people
face
were
it.
not charged with
And this
crimes.
incredible
Does the White
team
House have a
believes
comment
that
on the
too.
prior administration violating the
This
free speech
executive
and due
order
process
makes
of
kids
these
with
Americans?
cancer the
And where is
first
the outrage
focus
from the left
of
that
AI
claims to stand
innovation
for due
across
process
healthcare
and free
in
speech?
America.
And after that, I have another question about protecting journalists from
in the
Antifa.
world
Sure. Well,
that
Kara,
could
to your
bring
first
us
point,
together,
please send me that
please
report.
let
That's
it
certainly
be
very
our
concerning. I
children.
haven't seen it myself, but
Because I can
if indeed
almost
that was
guarantee
happening, it's something I'm
if
sure
your
the Department of
child was
Justice and the
diagnosed with
FBI would
cancer,
deem
you
worthy
wouldn't
of
care
looking
what
into.
party their doctor belonged
As you mentioned
to.
earlier, are
You
being
would just
increasingly
want the
attacked by
best.
leftist protesters.
And President
I was actually
Trump is
assaulted
doing
outside of
just
President
that,
Trump's United Nations
enabling that
speech.
every
And I think all the
child
White House
with
is aware that a
cancer
Portland
gets the
journalist was
best
almost
care
blinded
possible.
by an
And we
Antifa
couldn't be
protester.
more
This has been a
grateful.
problem that's gone on for years, and police often say that their hands are tied. Does the White House have a plan or plan on issuing a statement maybe discouraging this violence against journalists out on the street like me and so many others in this country?
Well, I hope that my statement earlier in the briefing served that purpose, but of course, we condemn violence against anyone in this country, and journalists as well, who are exercising their First Amendment right. And there have been so many incredible independent journalists across the country who have gone undercover within Antifa and really have come to understand how this is a growing domestic terrorism threat inside of our country. And I would encourage maybe some of you in this room to get outside the Beltway and go do some of that undercover investigative reporting, because it is really incredible what they found. I met with one of them in my office yesterday, and they're doing very dangerous work in difficult circumstances, and Antifa is a very violent group, as you've experienced and many others in the media have as well. Christian.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Following up on Libby's from the other side of the abortion debate, has the president abandoned his campaign pledge to mandate insurance coverage for IVF services?
No.
Now, this executive order on that, we flew by that May EO deadline. Top science and technology
I literally just read a statement from the Health and Human Services on you, for Libby at least, as far as IVF goes. I'll check in with our policy team and we'll get you some updates.
How concerned is the White House that the Russian Navy seems to be escalating its provocation of NATO allies, and talking, of course, to the several close calls they had with the Danish military during the EU leaders' meeting?
It's something the administration takes very seriously, and we are constantly monitoring it. The National Security Council here at the White House is in constant correspondence with our NATO allies, and the President speaks to many of them as well.
The private sector and
Yes.
universities will bring the best tools to the table.
Mass shootings.
Together we will ensure that every
Michigan church that was attacked, children being shot in schools in Minnesota. We've also seen politically motivated assassinations of Minnesota lawmakers Charlie Kirk. Has any of this made the President or the White House rethink gun safety prevention in this country? Either red flag laws, I know that was a conversation in the first Trump administration, or is there anything on the table right now?
Of course, this is an extremely pressing issue for the administration and our entire country. It's deeply alarming to everyone here, the violence that we've seen taking place all over the country, the assassinations that have unfortunately, tragically taken place throughout the last several months. There are many discussions about how to prevent such violence and how we can ensure that law enforcement has the resources they can on the ground to not only respond, but again, to prevent such tragedies from taking place. If there are red flags with an individual in the community, that they are treated as an emergency, a public safety emergency, not just, turn a blind eye to. There's many other things we can do, but the administration and the president has always also made it clear he's always going to protect the constitutional right, Second Amendment constitutional right of Americans to own guns.
For Congress to pass a federal red flag law. Right now, they just incentivize states financially to have red flag laws. But I know Lindsey Graham has worked on this as a Republican. There are some Republicans that do support this kind of gun safety legislation.
I don't want to get ahead of the president on any congressional action or any suggestion to Congress.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, President Trump, for signing this historic executive order lacking your administration to use advanced artificial intelligence technology to cure childhood cancer. By signing this executive order, the administration advanced teenage and childhood cancer data initiatives, coordinated pediatric, adolescent
hospitals
and young adult
should not
care
have to
cancers,
treat
first launched under President Trump's
people
direction
who
in
come into the
2019.
emergency department.
When I was a
who are
young
not
medical
here.
student in the
No, that's
1990s,
not
I had
our
the
position.
privilege of spending
Our position
a
is that
month
it's
in a
completely
pediatric cancer
unacceptable
ward
that the Biden
treating
administration
children with
paroled
cancer.
and
And I have to say it was the most
encouraged an
difficult month of
invasion
my
of
life.
tens
I
of
left,
millions of
for
illegal
home
aliens
every day
into
in
our
tears.
country and then
Watching
promised
little
them free
children
health
cope with a
care.
deadly disease
And the
is
Democrats
hard.
are on the
They
record
should be playing with their
repeatedly
friends,
stating
going to
that they
school,
believe illegal
living their
aliens
best
should have
lives.
health care
But
benefits,
instead
free
they-
health care
they
benefits
bravely
in the United
face
States of
cancer.
America.
These
So
are
that
the
is a
bravest
recipe
kids
for a
I've ever
disaster.
met.
Of course you're going to encourage
I have
a
tremendous
mass
admiration for
illegal
scientists
invasion
who
of our
devote their lives
country,
to
which is
finding
exactly
cures
what
for
happened.
kids with cancer,
And we've seen the
the doctors
unfortunate
and nurses who
consequence
take
of
care of
that,
them,
where
and for their
American
parents
patients
who,
are being put
suffer
last, where
alongside
American
them, care for them,
patients
and
are
love
having
them.
to wait in wait rooms
This year,
where
nearly
grandmothers and
9,500 children
grandfathers
will be
are waiting
diagnosed with
hours and
cancer in
hours
the
for
US.
care
In
because
the
they're being put
mid-1970s,
behind the
the
line
five-year
to
survival
illegal
for
aliens. And we
cancer
don't
was
agree with that. We don't
58%.
support that. That's
Today,
why the
the
administration
cancer
is
survival
desperately
rate for
trying to
children with
fix
cancer
it
is
and deport the
85%.
tens of millions of illegal
This is
aliens
because of the
that the
tremendous
Democrats
investments we've
and the
made
Biden
in treating
administration
childhood
allowed
cancer
into our
and
country. And we'd
researching
love to
it.
continue
And it's worth
doing
celebrating
that
this
work
achievement.
so long as
But
the
I
federal
say that
government
85%
is
is
reopened.
still
And there are many
too low.
federal law
We need to be
enforcement
at
agents and
100.
officers
Well,
right now
we
who
still
are
have a
working
long way
without
to
pay.
go.
That's unacceptable.
The
The
treatments these
Democrats
little
need
kids undergo
to
involve therapies like
reopen the
chemo,
United States
radiation,
government, and we
that put
hope
them
that
through
they will do
hell.
the right thing
Even
on the
with
Senate floor in
85% will
just
be
a few
cured,
moments.
the
Thank
therapies
you, everyone.
themselves can cause health problems as kids age into adulthood. Nearly 60% of cancer survivors experience severe life-threatening complications in adulthood because of these treatments. And so we need better treatments so that we can raise the survival rate and reduce the side effects. This initiative builds on the CCDI's mission to gather data from every child, adolescent, and young adult
Good
diagnosed with
afternoon,
cancer, no
everybody.
matter where they receive care.
How are we
It aims
today?
to develop a platform and
Good.
tools to bring together clinical
During
care,
his inaugural
research
address,
tools like
President
molecular
Trump promised
characterization
that
and genetic
America would
information,
be a
tools that will
manufacturing
improve
nation
preventive
once
measures,
again.
treatment,
And
quality
liberal
of life, and
pundits mocked
survival
him
for
for it.
childhood cancer.
But those critics
By
were
uniting
proven
families,
wrong
clinicians, and
once
researchers,
again.
by harnessing the
On the
power of
heels
AI,
of President Trump's
CCDI
Oval
will
Office
accelerate
meeting with
diagnosis,
Apple
inform
CEO Tim
treatment,
Cook
and develop
last
the
week,
next generation
Apple
of
just announced
life-saving
its
therapies.
largest ever
This is not
commitment
about
to American
collecting data
jobs
alone.
and
It's
industry,
about giving
with
families
plans
hope.
to spend and
Today,
invest more than
we commit to taking this work to
$500
the next
billion
level.
in
With his
America
executive order
over the
that
next
President Trump
4
is signing,
years.
we're building a
Over the
future where
course
every
of the
child's
current
data
Trump
contributes to faster
administration,
diagnosis.
Apple plans to
Artificial
hire around
intelligence helps us uncover
20,000
faster,
new
more
workers,
precise treatments,
creating high-paying
improve quality of
jobs
life, and
right
better
here
survival.
in America.
And finally, let me
And the
extend my
investment isn't limited to
sincere
one
congratulations
specific
and
region of
gratitude to
our
President Trump
country.
for his leadership and
Apple
vision in
teams
giving
and
us this
facilities will
opportunity
expand
to make
all
America
over
healthy
our
again,
country,
to
in
rigorously push the
Arizona,
boundaries of
California,
science and bring hope to
Iowa,
millions of families.
Nevada,
Thank you.
North Carolina, Michigan,
Very much.
Oregon,
Appreciate
Texas, and Washington.
Director
With President
Kretschmer,
Trump in
please.
charge,
Thank you, Mr.
America
President,
is
and
open
thank
for
you,
business.
Secretary Kennedy, for your
Apple
leadership
CEO
on
Tim Cook
this
said it
issue.
best
I
in the
am
company's
thrilled
announcement.
that our
We are
master
bullish on the
strategy
future of
prioritizes
American
utilizing AI
innovation.
in the
On
fight
top
against
of this
cancer.
incredible
This
Apple
executive order is
announcement,
putting a
President Trump
priority
already
to this
announced more
action.
than $1
Thank you
trillion
for your commitment,
in
Mr.
pledged
President,
investments
to
into the United
States for
States.
maintaining its global
And on
leadership
another
in
important
artificial
note that the
intelligence.
American
Across
people
models,
entrusted
data
President
sets,
Trump to fulfill,
applications,
this
and to
administration's efforts
issue
to
an
seal
AI
the
action
border
plan to do
continue
just
to
that.
prove
Your foresight
extraordinarily
in the first
successful.
term, leading you to
In President
establish
Trump's
the
first month back in
CCDI
office
to gather,
alone, illegal
harness,
border
and share
crossings
data
hit
on
lows
childhood
not
cancers
seen in
has
decades,
positioned us
down
today to leverage AI in a way we could
94%
never imagine
over the
before.
past year, while
With
interior
America's
arrests
pioneering
are up
models, American researchers now have the best tools in the
And this
world
past
to
Saturday,
turn the
this is a
CCDI
significant
data
statistic
into the
that I wanted to
building
share with
blocks
all of
life-changing
you.
breakthroughs.
There were only
So I and my team at
220
OSTP
illegal
are
border
thrilled to
crossings
partner
on
with our teams at
Saturday.
HHS,
This is a
NIH, and David
15-year
to empower
low.
the development
Think
of
about
gold
that in
standard
comparison to the
applications for
amount
pediatric cancer
of illegal
research
border
and to play
crossings
our
we
very
saw
small
under the
part
previous previous
and trying to protect the
administration.
health and happiness of
Fox
America's
recently
children.
reported that a San Diego migrant shelter is closing its doors after saying they have not received new asylum-seeking families or individuals since January 20th. We all know what happened on January 20th, don't we? And yesterday, New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced that the massive Roosevelt Hotel migrant shelter in Manhattan will shut down in the next few months. We're also seeing a reverse migration effect. There are now verified reports from the Associated Press of migrants abandoning their journey to the United States and heading back home. This is the first time the Border Patrol has received these reports since 2020, during President Trump's first
because of
term.
that, we have an AI boom
The
going
returning
on.
migrants claimed in
4.8%
interviews that
growth
the
rate
new
in the
heavy
last
security
quarter,
posture
and GDP, and a
adopted
big
by the
part of
Trump
that's because of the AI
administration
boom that you've
was a
unleashed.
significant
So
reason for their
thank you, sir, for
decision
doing
to
that.
return
I think that
to
we
the
can see
countries
today
of their
that
origin.
this AI boom is not just going to be about
Overall,
dollars and cents,
the
but
American
about
people
saving
continue
lives
to
as well.
overwhelmingly
We're gonna
give
get some
President Trump's
miraculous cures
very
out of this.
positive
So thank you
remarks.
to everyone
Nearly
here today.
every one of President Trump's
We
policy
just had a
initiatives
meeting
are
and
receiving
Oz was at the
strong
meeting and
majority
was,
support.
a dominant
And I have noted
factor
that in
over
every
Bobby,
briefing
and
since
maybe you
Inauguration
could just,
Day.
say a
81% of Americans support deporting illegal migrant criminals from our nation's interior. 76% of Americans support the DOJ-led efforts of a full-scale investigation to find and eliminate fraud and waste in government expenditures. Again, this is from a Harvard-Harris poll, a very legitimate pollster. 76% of Americans support closing the border. 69% of Americans support President Trump's common sense efforts to ban men from women's sports. As you all know, we celebrated that executive order at the White House a couple of weeks ago. 65% of Americans support the president's efforts to eliminate all preferences by race in the hiring and awarding of government contracts, which is another pledge that DOJ is working hard to fulfill. And 61% of Americans, vast majority, support the president's plan for reciprocal tariffs to ensure that other countries are treating us the way we have always been treated. Despite what many Democrats and media members want you to believe, the Trump agenda is not only necessary, but it is overwhelmingly popular. Why? Because it's driven by common sense. And finally, as you all saw yesterday, a federal judge denied the Associated Press's emergency motion for a temporary restraining order against myself, our Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich, and our Chief of Staff Susie Wiles for our decision to remove the Associated Press from the White House press pool for certain and special events. The judge's ruling upholding our decision to deny the Associated Press such privileged access reinforces the truth. And it reiterates what I said from this podium last week when that suit was filed. Asking the President of the United States questions in limited spaces such as the Oval Office in Air Force One is a privilege that unfortunately has only been granted to a few. It is not a legal right for all. The Trump administration has already proven to be the most transparent ever, and this president the most accessible in history. This is evidenced by President Trump's daily press conferences in the Oval Office, where he takes many questions from the journalists who have the honor and privilege of standing before the beautiful, resolute desk. The President and this entire White House are committed to ensuring the American people continue to receive this same level of historic transparency, access, and visibility. In fact, we want to double down and give even greater access to the American people. We want more outlets and new outlets to have a chance to take part in the press pool to cover this administration's unprecedented achievements up close, front and center. As you all know, for decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join. Fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility. Just like we added a new media seat in this briefing room, legacy media outlets who have been here for years will still participate in the pool, but new voices are going to be welcomed in as well. As part of these changes, we will continue the rotation amongst the 5 major television networks to ensure the President's remarks are heard far and wide around this world. We will add additional streaming services which reach different audiences than traditional cable and broadcast. This is the ever-changing landscape of the media in the United States today. We will continue to rotate a print pooler who has the great responsibility of quickly transcribing the President's remarks and disseminating them to the rest of the world. And we will add outlets to the print pool rotation who have long been denied the privilege to partake in this experience, but are committed to covering this White House beat. We will continue to rotate a radio pooler and add other radio hosts who have been denied access, especially local radio hosts who serve as the heartbeat of our country. And we will add additional outlets and reporters who are well-suited to cover the news of the day and ask substantive questions of the President of the United States, depending on the news he is making on that given day. This administration is shaking up Washington in more ways than one. That's what we were elected to do.
And so we're doing
As I have said since the first day behind this podium, it's beyond time that the White House press operation reflects the media habits of the American people in 2025, not 1925. A select group of DC-based journalists should no longer have a monopoly over the privilege of press access at the White House. All journalists, outlets, and voices deserve a seat at this highly coveted table. So by deciding which outlets make up the limited press pool on a day-to-day basis, the White House will be restoring power back to the American people who President Trump was elected to serve. So in that note, in our new media seat today, we have Shelby Talcott, who is a White House reporter for Semaphore. In 2022, Semaphore launched as a global digital news platform with the aim of bringing meaningful innovations to the news industry. Today, they have nearly 1 million newsletter subscribers spanning 11 separate editions.
Apart, blindfolded, and put it
With
back,
that, Shelby,
blindfolded.
I will take your
But
questions.
they weren't too good at other things, and many of them ended up doing better than the people that were. So trade schools are very important, and we've lost trade schools. We used to have a lot of trade schools in this country. We don't have them anymore. We have tremendous plants opening, and we want to have people at top level for those plants, whether it's AI or whether it's automotive plants.
I think the president has made his position on Venezuela quite clear. He stands in opposition to the Maduro regime. And Secretary Rubio has spoken on this extensively.
I think they like November 5th. They like the person that was chosen, and they're moving in from Canada. They're moving in from Mexico. They're coming in from all over the world. China's coming. They're all coming, and that way they avoid paying tariffs. So they're coming for that reason. So by opening up trade school, because we're going to need employees, we're going to need people with skill. And I think I can say, Linda, you feel the same way.
So a
By
couple of
opening
things
up
on
trade
this.
school,
First of all, let's just take a step back and talk about this idea. The president sent out a truth last weekend to Elon Musk saying he loves everything Elon is doing and he wants him to be even more aggressive because Doge thus far has proven incredibly successful in making our government more efficient. And so Elon and Doge came up with this idea. Elon has implemented this in his private companies. It has proven successful. And it's a very simple idea when you think about it. All the Office of Personnel Management is asking, all this administration is asking, President Trump is asking, is for federal workers who live off of the American taxpayers' dime to send 5 bullet points of what they have done in the previous week. That is all we are asking for. And so the Office of Personnel and Management sent out additional guidance last night. Those responses should be directed to agency leadership, and the president defers to his cabinet secretaries, who he's obviously entrusted to pursue the guidance relative to their specific workforce. And for some of the agencies that you've seen who have said, please don't send these emails, it's in their best interest for that specific agency, and the president supports that. And let me be very clear, the president and Elon and his entire cabinet are working as one unified team, and they are implementing these very common sense solutions.
As you know, I started the process, but then when COVID came, we focused on COVID, not on this.
About the deadline,
And I said, if I ever go back,
you have until tonight.
if I ever go back
Elon
and do
Musk
it
said
again,
failure to respond
I'm
a
gonna make
second
this
time would
a
result
primary
in
thing, because other
termination.
countries are
Is
paying a
that
fraction
a
of
real
what we pay.
deadline?
For the
Should
same
federal
exact
workers
drug,
be
same
looking
exact
to
pharmaceutical,
that guidance, or
everything.
should they be looking to
And I said, no,
the
it's not
agency
right.
heads? Like, what is
And
the
drug
actual
companies
deadline?
actually came along.
So
You know,
again,
don't
the
forget, they make
agency
30,
heads
40,
will
50 million a year,
determine the
these
best
people. They're
practices
very
for
smart.
their employees
And
at
they
their
had a lot of
specific
people
agencies.
convinced
Again,
that,
this was an
you know,
idea
that's the way it has
that
to be. They talked
Elon
about
come up
research
with,
and
Doge
development.
worked
We
with
had a bad-
OPM to actually
I said,
implement
well,
the
why isn't
idea, and the
Germany paying?
secretaries
Why
are
aren't other
responsible
countries
for
paying?
their specific
And they
workforce.
always
And
had
this
a
is
good
true
answer,
of
but
the hirings and the
it got to a
firings that have
point where I
taken
didn't like
place.
the answer
And
anymore,
we
I said,
advise
this,
federal
and we did it.
workers,
The
unless
team
your
that we
agency
have
has
with Oz
dictated
and
you
Bobby
not
and
to
Chris and all of the
respond to
people
this
that we
email.
have
In fact,
working
I
on
can
it,
announce that we've had more than 1
I
million
must say,
workers
Marty's
who have chosen
a
to
big
participate
representative,
in this
but
very
Marty's been a
simple
big-
task of,
a
again,
big fan.
sending 5 bullet points
we have a great
to your
team.
direct
There's never been a
supervisor or
medical team
manager
like this.
CCing
And
OPM.
let's
I
go
actually
do it. And then
participated
I
in myself.
did,
It took me
I said,
about
I would
a
bug
minute
them
and a
every
half to
single
think of
day,
5
every
things
week.
I did last week. I do 5
Because I
things in
said,
about
we
10
have to
minutes,
have-
and all
I mean,
federal
why
workers
should we be
should be
paying
working
10
at the
times
same
what
pace
another
that
country's
President
paying?
Trump is working and
that was
moving.
just
We have
an
a country
excuse,
to
you know,
save,
research and
and we want this federal
development. We do
government to
research
be
and development.
responsive to the needs of the American people
now
who
we're gonna be paying
re-elected this
whatever the
president to
lowest
have
price is, we're
historic
gonna be
massive
paying that
reform.
price.
And that's what the
It's a good
intention
thing.
of this
But
idea is.
there won't be anything that
Elon
can
Musk
have the
also said
impact
that a
on
reason
Medicare,
they wanted this
Medicaid,
5 things
Social
email was just to
Security,
see if
anything where
people
you
are
need
actually alive,
pharmaceuticals, medicines.
citing that there are some federal
the
workers who might
numbers
not
are gonna
even
come way
be
down.
alive.
Even Obamacare, which is terrible.
Meantime, NBC is reporting that these responses are going to go into an AI generator to evaluate whether these jobs are necessary. So is it just to see if people are actually working, or is it an effort to maybe cut some of those jobs?
I have not seen that NBC News report, and I haven't heard that from Doge or from Elon himself. Again, this is to ensure that federal workers are not ripping off American taxpayers, that they are showing up to the office, and that they are doing their jobs. That's what the American people expect, and it's a very simple task to complete. I did it myself, and I was more than happy to do it because I'm very grateful that I am serving the American people on the American taxpayers' dime.
Potentially to bring us all together, get us on the same page and have unity. And I'd like to see some of the kids'
Are my press
parents
briefings not good enough for you, Jackie?
John. President Trump get involved with
Well, we've made tremendous strides in cancer research, far more than anyone has done.
Yesterday,
and we have the greatest minds, the greatest people working on it.
or against yourself and
they call it childhood cancer.
and your team members here,
thing.
and President Trump. In there,
we
he
really
said,
made a lot of
why not just do away with the
I think
entire
something that's
White
going to
House
allow us to
Correspondents
make a lot of progress is
Association
the money we're saving
along
on
with it, because
pharmaceuticals.
essentially they have no authority.
We'll be
They
saving
just
500,
usurp it.
600,
What is your reaction to that?
1,000%.
Well, first of all, John, it's
Nobody's
great
ever
to see
heard of
you,
that.
and you
I
are
told
one
the
of
story,
those
you were here before,
individuals who has
when I was
you're on a
in the
streaming
previous
platform that hundreds of
administration,
thousands
my
of
first
people
term,
tune into
I
every
was so
day. So
proud
it's
of
great to
myself
see you in the
because
briefing
I'm the
room.
first
I did address that
president
actually in
in
my opening
28
remarks
years
by
that cut
announcing
drug
that the White
prices
House
from
press
beginning
team
to end. So
in this
they went down,
administration
I
will
think it was
determine who
1/8
gets
of a percent
to
1/4 of
enjoy
1%,
the
and I was
very
so proud of
privileged
that.
and
I
limited
thought that
access
was
in
big.
spaces such as
Now I'm
Air
cutting
Force
them
One and the Oval
500%.
Office. There are,
And
as
I
you know,
will
look
say
at this
this,
room,
politically
hundreds
speaking,
of journalists
the
who
people
show up to this
understand,
building
otherwise
every
I
single
wouldn't have
day
won
and
on
are not
that
granted
side.
that
I get
luxury of
97%
flying on Air
bad
Force
press,
One and asking the
and I won
President of the
on that
United
side,
States
which tells
questions.
you
And so
the
we
press
want to
has no
ensure,
credibility.
again, everyone has a
But
seat
I
at
will
that highly
say
coveted
that,
table. But
what
alas,
we've
the
done
legacy media outlets
has
who
been a
have
great
been
tribute
doing
to the
this for
people
quite
that
some
stand
time and have
behind me.
invested
In
resources into
different
covering the
forms.
White House,
Linda
their
in
spots will
education,
remain, just like they have in this briefing
what she's
room
doing
as
in
well.
education,
Sure.
she's sending education back to the states. That's a big move. The states, like, you go back to Indiana, Iowa.
So the president
I would
talked
say
at length
40
about
states
this
will be
yesterday,
great.
the critical minerals deal with
45
President
will be,
Macron,
you know,
and
the
in the
5%
more than
of
hour-long
them
press
will be
conference he gave all of
pretty
you
good,
in the
but-
Oval Office
and then you're
himself.
gonna have
There hasn't been
a
significant
Gavin Newsom
updates
and
since the
some other
president's
people that
remarks
aren't
last
gonna do a
night,
good
but
job,
I will
but,
just
you know, we'll
reiterate
help
his
them out. I wanna
position.
help them
It's
out.
critical
We're gonna
that
have
this deal
safe
is signed. He
cities
expects
again. We're gonna
President
be very
Zelensky
safe.
to
We're gonna
sign
be
a
going to
deal.
Chicago
This
pretty
is
soon.
to
Because,
recoup American
friend
tax
of mine,
dollars that have
a
been
great guy,
funding
the head of the
Ukraine's
Union
national
Pacific, he
defense.
said,
And it's
"Sir,
also
you have
great
to
for the
save
Ukrainian
Chicago.
people
It's
who have
going
been
bad.
put through hell
It's
because
going
of this
bad
war.
fast, and it's
And
a
it will
great
create
city.
a
He's right.
lasting
It's a great city. I
economic
know it very
partnership
well.
as Ukraine will need
And
to
we have
rebuild
to
their
save
country
Chicago. So we're
because of
going
this brutal war.
to Memphis, Tennessee right now. We've had a home run in D.C. You can walk out. Brian, you got mugged here.
I don't want to
time
comment
ago.
on Mr. Witkoff's
And the
travel
mugger must
plans
have
or
felt
read
some
anything
pain
out
because
just
you're
for
a tough
obvious
cookie.
reasons.
Well, yeah,
But he
John, I wish you
remains
would've
very
had
much
a gun.
working. That man is working around the clock to
If he had
secure
a gun, all you
this
could do
deal
is say thank you
with
very
Russia and
much.
Ukraine alongside Secretary
Yeah,
Rubio and Secretary
but it's,
Bessent, General Keith
everybody
Kellogg.
here, I mean,
He's also working very hard to
you were
secure
here
a peace
in the
deal
room
in the
when I
Middle
said to
East
the
as
reporters,
well.
who got mugged
God bless him,
in the
and
last
he's working
year?
alongside the
Like
president
half of
every
the people
single day.
raised their hand. Now, if you said who got mugged over the last 60 days, nobody.
Doge called for the
Nobody.
naming
No
of
killing,
a
no
Doge
nothing.
administrator.
And the restaurants
Who
are
is the Doge
booming, the town is booming,
So
it's
the
clean.
president tasked
You know, the
Elon
National
Musk
Guard
to
actually went out and
oversee the
started
Doge
cleaning all
effort.
the
There
crap
are
out of the
career
parks.
officials and there
The
are
tents
political
are knocked down.
appointees who are
We had
helping
one that you said it was a
run
blue
Doge
tent.
on a day-to-day
And you
basis.
said it was a
There are
communist
also
tent, right? So we're gonna have a
individuals who have
communist mayor of
onboarded
New
as
York,
political
so,
appointees
we'll see how that
at
works
every
out.
agency across the board to work alongside President Trump's cabinet to find
You
and
told me
identify
about a
waste,
blue
fraud,
tent,
and
and I
abuse,
said, "Yes, I
and they
can't
are
be there
working on
because
that
we
effort
knocked
every
them
day.
down." But this was
Reagan.
a very highly
Reagan.
sophisticated group of people that had permits and all the other things. Well, their permit expired, we knocked it down. It took, what, 24 hours less, maybe? So I appreciate you telling me that. No, we have a great thing going. The country is doing incredible. We are a hot country.
Is the
The hottest-
president
we're the
looking to
hottest
secure
country in
new
the world right
contracts,
now.
and how is he defining success
Yeah, that's a
in
great
terms of
question.
border
Would you
wall
like to say
construction this
something?
I would.
administration?
That's a good
The border
comment
wall is
right there.
a
That's the best
signature
comment
promise
you
of
made in a long
President
time.
Trump's campaign. He talked about it way
Mr.
back
President, good
in
evening.
2015
I'm
and
Josh
2016,
Armstrong. My name is
and
Josh
people
Armstrong. I'm
laughed
from
at
West
him for
Virginia,
bringing up this
and I'm the
idea.
father
It's
of this
proven to be
amazingly brave and
not
resilient
only an idea
6-year-old
that he
Laurel.
delivered on in
Laurel
his
was
first term and
diagnosed with
continues to
leukemia
deliver on in his
when she
second
was 2
term,
years old,
but it's
just before
also
her third
proven to be
birthday.
highly effective.
And we went on to
In
watch as
fact,
she
we
spent
know
months in the
where there
hospital
were parts of President Trump's border wall built and standing under the previous administration, illegal border crossings dropped 87% where there was a border wall. So the wall is an incredible deterrent factor for illegal migrant caravans. The president is committed to the continuation of the construction of the wall.
And we watched and wondered why there aren't better
the previous administration actually sold off the resources that the Trump administration secured to build the wall. And that's an egregious misuse of the American taxpayers' money. They just let those resources rot on the southern border. They actually sold them for pennies on the dollar. So this administration, DHS and ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and Tom Homan and all of the great people you know who are working on this effort are committed to continuing the construction of President Trump's border wall.
Will the White House release the names of the individuals that DHS Secretary Noem said were caught leaking details of the ICE raid? And can you share how many leakers have been caught so far and what agency they were a part of?
I would defer you to DHS on the leakers that they have identified, but I know the president in this White House commends Secretary Noem for launching an internal investigation to identify those leakers because it's unacceptable for career bureaucrats who are standing in the way of the will of the American people and enacting President Trump's agenda. If they don't want to adhere to the will of the 77 million Americans who reelected President Trump, then they should go find another job. And if they continue to leak information, especially information that is critical to protecting Border Patrol agents and ICE agents who are out there doing jobs that not many people are willing to do, putting their lives on the line to protect our national security, then those individuals absolutely should be fired. And this administration is committed to finding them.
Match patients to trials more quickly and give our families more.
One related to Guantanamo Bay, the other to the White House response center. I wanted to get your response to some Washington Post reporting of the migrants who stayed over at Guantanamo Bay for the last 2 weeks. They told the Post they were rarely let outside. They were shackled and placed in what they described as cages and alleged that they were not treated as human beings. Does the White House have any response to those conditions?
At Guantanamo Bay?
Mr. President,
it's a promise the president campaigned on, that if you invade our nation's borders, if you break our country's laws, and if then you further commit heinous, brutal crimes in the interior of our country, like raping and murdering innocent, law-abiding women and girls, and committing heinous acts of violence, then you are going to be deported from this country, and you may be held at Guantanamo Bay. These are criminals we are talking about. Don't forget that.
I've done lots of speeches for childhood cancer over the last few years.
So U.S. consumer confidence fell this month the most since August of 2021. What is your message for Americans who are concerned about the impact of things such as tariffs on prices?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for that question. It's obviously an important one. The president campaigned on reigniting the Trump economy and fixing the mess that was created by the previous administration. We know they created an economic and an inflation nightmare for the American people, and I'm not going to stand up here and lie to you like my predecessor did about the state of our economy. We understand there are people that are hurting, and this administration is wholeheartedly committed to ensuring that those individuals see relief and price reductions and tax cuts and in less regulations that are burdensome on their household and their businesses. And the president and this entire administration are focused on that every day. I can go through the very long list of economic actions this president has taken. I know you work for Bloomberg, so I'm sure you're well aware of them, but I can assure the American people that the president is very much focused on bringing down the cost of living crisis in this country that was created by the previous administration.
We're not doing so well.
Sure.
Is the president planning on whipping any votes for support for the House budget vote, and if so, to whom is he making calls?
I'm not aware of any calls that he has made. I did talk to the president about his position on this just before coming down here, and he said that he's made it very clear to the Hill what his priorities for a budget are. He said it to the Speaker of the House, he said it to Leader Thune. The Senate and the House know what President Trump wants and know what the American people want. And so he expects Congress to get it done. He's looking at the proposal from the House. He will also be looking at the proposal that I believe the Senate is drafting up as well. Sure.
Thank you all for being amazing.
Unite to this day.
But you know, we're doing a lot for you, and you're all going to be better very soon. I don't think you're going to need any of the help.
Why don't you identify your question and I'll come back to you.
But I want to thank you for being with us.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to bring them back to a room. We have a room where we have lots of hats and things in the back.
So after 2 weeks, as the ceasefire terms,
I'm not sure about the guarantee that you're referring to. I can tell you that this administration remains very much engaged. We know the deadline for the Phase 1 ceasefire is imminent. So Steve Woodcock, whom I mentioned earlier, and the President's administration and his team, and the President himself remain very much engaged. We want to see the ceasefire continue, and the President has made it very clear he wants to see all of the hostages who have been held in captivity in Gaza returned home. Jeff.
Karoline, I was wondering if is Elon Musk going to attend the president's first cabinet meeting tomorrow?
He is, as a matter of fact. I spoke to the president about that before coming down here as well. And Elon, considering he is working alongside the president and our cabinet secretaries, this entire administration will be in attendance tomorrow just to talk about DOJ's efforts and how all of the cabinet secretaries are identifying waste, fraud, and abuse at their respective agencies. We look forward to the meeting tomorrow, and I think you'll be hearing from the president and his cabinet where they're on campus tomorrow. I hope you guys are excited.
Those cabinet members were caught off guard by the email.
Nobody was caught off guard.
I just want to
a few departments said they were caught off guard. The FBI was, the DOJ was.
Did anonymous sources say that, or did the cabinet secretary say that?
The cabinet secretaries and others have said that they were not aware that this was happening. So I'm wondering, will there be a give and take tomorrow at the cabinet meeting? Is Elon Musk or the president open to any type of dialogue about who is actually in charge of the chain of command of these workers?
I would reject the premise of your question, Jeff. The cabinet secretaries have not said that. I know anonymous sources, probably career bureaucrats, have leaked that to many of you in this room. But as I said at the beginning of this press conference, everybody is working as one team, and the president respects the decisions of his cabinet secretaries to tell their staff, not to respond to that email because they did so out of interests of national security, and they don't want to obviously risk confidential information. It's pretty common sense. Dasha.
That's been fully
Musk
ratified and
has obviously been
approved
doing
by
a lot of
the
work. He's been working every day, a lot of times weekends.
And so we appreciate
he
that.
is designated as a special government employee, which means that he can
later.
only work 130 days per
that,
year. Is the White House expecting him to limit his work to 130 days, or are you going to work around those rules? Do you want to see him extend beyond the 130
So today is February 25th, so I think we've been here about 35 days roughly. So ask me in another 100 days. Daniel.
Today is a victory day for World War II. We won the war together exactly 80 years ago, so there could be no more perfect morning to reach this historic agreement. And it's beautiful weather out, I will tell you that, Keir. Beautiful weather, so perfect outside.
Just a month into President Trump's second term, what does that signal about his economic vision for the country?
One of our
President Trump is a deal maker, and he has restored confidence in business leaders around this entire world. Apple is one of the largest companies on the face of the planet. They employ hundreds of thousands of Americans, but the president wants to see more Americans employed, more investments here in the United States of America. And this is another fulfillment of the president's campaign promises. I recall President Trump at his rallies on the campaign telling the world that if and when I am elected, America is going to be back, and we want your investments to be driven onshore. We want you to hire American workers, and you will have the lowest regulatory burden, the lowest tax cuts, and the president has already proven he's committed to slashing regulation. He's counting on Congress to implement those tax cuts. And so people are encouraged by the president's, again, as Tim Cook called it, they're bullish about American innovation because of the leadership of this president. And it's a stark contrast to the leadership of the previous administration, Joe Biden, who I don't think spent any time trying to recruit any investments or jobs here at home.
Eliminate numerous non-tariff
some Republicans who are voicing concerns about how these cuts are being carried out. Congressman McCormick, a Republican from Georgia, tells us he's worried it's too rapid for real people to adapt to. And he says he's concerned that it could come off as discompassionate in his words, that it could risk undercutting the strong message that he feels you're trying to send about the need to cut government waste.
Well, I think that was one comment from one senator, and I think as I cited in my opening remarks in the poll, the most important people are the American people, and 77% of Americans at home support a full investigation into the waste, fraud, and abuse that the federal government has been spending their tax dollars on. So that's the people the president cares about most, and that's why we're fulfilling this pledge. And again, it should come as no secret to anybody. The president campaigned on doing this.
We'll also receive new market access for American chemicals, machinery, and many other industrial products that weren't allowed.
Again, I've been asked to answer this question 3 times now. It is, but it's in the memo. The president again has entrusted his cabinet secrariats to oversee their workforce. That's why he nominated them to be cabinet secretaries, and so federal workers can
into the economic
be
security
directed to their
alignment
agency
with the United
leadership.
States. That's the first of its kind.
Great, thanks, Karoline.
So we have a big economic security blanket, and that's very important. And we feel very, very comfortable with that because it's been a great ally. It's really one of our great allies. A lot of people say our greatest ally. I don't want to insult people by saying that, but I can say it's certainly one of
Again,
our
I've been asked to answer this question.
right at the
Elon
top,
Musk
and
is overseeing
they're the
DOGE.
first
There are
one we're
career
talking about. And by the way, we have many
Elon Musk is a
meetings
special
planned
government
today
employee,
and
which I've
tomorrow,
also been asked and have answered
every
that
country
question
wants
as
to
well.
be making
There are
deals.
career officials
And we
at
have a
DOGE. There are
meeting,
political
as you know, Scott,
appointees
will be
at
going
DOGE.
over
I'm not
to
going to
Switzerland
reveal the
on
name of
Saturday.
that individual
That'll
from
be
this podium. I'm
very,
happy
very
to follow up
interesting.
and
Let's
provide
find
that
out.
to you.
I think they want to make a deal very
But
badly.
we've been incredibly transparent
Both
about the way that
countries have
DOGE is
agreed that the
working.
economic security is national security, and we'll be working together as allies to ensure that we have a strong industrial base, appropriate export controls, and protections for key technologies and industries like steel. Steel is a big factor. Both countries will become stronger with steel and things necessary for military. We used to build ships and other things literally at a level that nobody's ever seen.
With another personnel announcement.
We haven't. We've eased up, and I would say
He thinks
that
he's
the UK
doing a
certainly
bad
eased up,
job,
but now we're
and it's
gonna be
time for a
uneasing
shakeup at
both,
the
and we'll work
Pentagon. They
together.
failed 7 audits in a row.
Once again, I want to
The
thank
trust
Prime
in our
Minister
United States
Starmer. He's been
military
terrific
amongst the
for his
war fighters
partnership in this matter,
is low. The
special
president is shaking up the
relationship
Pentagon and the
external
Department of
bond.
Defense.
It's really an
Of course, with
external and an
Secretary
internal
Hegseth
bond.
leading,
Between our
and
two
he has the right
countries
to
will
do
soon
that.
be
It's
stronger
actually
than
quite
ever
common
before.
from
We
administration to
really do. We have a
administration
great
to do such a thing.
relationship.
The
I want to
president,
just say that
when
the
he swore
representatives
him in
of
as the
UK have been so professional.
chief of staff for the Air Force, called him a
It's
great
been an honor
man
doing
and a
business
great
with all of
gentleman,
them, and
as
in
he distanced
particular the
himself from
Prime
the remarks
Minister.
that he made back
I'd like
in
to
August of
introduce him now to say a
I think
few words.
replacing him speaks for
Mr.
itself.
Prime Minister,
James.
please take it away.
One other one, if I'm sorry. Thank you. On the FBI, the president also announced a new deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino. From what has been reported, and maybe this is not accurate reporting, you can tell me, the FBI director, Kash Patel, informed Republican senators that it would be an individual named as the deputy who is a special agent currently at the FBI, and of course Mr. Bongino is not. What was the reason for naming Mr. Bongino to this position, and was Mr. Patel not correct in making that assurance to the senators?
I'm not sure if anybody in this room has listened to Mr. Bongino when he talks about the past corruption at the FBI, when he talks about his experience serving for the United States Secret Service. This is a man who loves his country and who has honorably served our country in ways that many people have not. He understands the depth of the corruption at these institutions, which the American people re-elected President Trump to shake up. And I think it's quite despicable to see many networks in this room who have had chyrons on their television screens labeling Mr. Bongino as a far-right podcaster. He is not. He is a former law enforcement agent. He is a former Secret Service agent who put his life on the line to protect this country, and that is why the President of the United States has entrusted him for this important role. He's also an outsider to this Washington swamp, and we often see that when outsiders are appointed to such coveted positions,